On Sunday, February the 11th, 2024, at approximately 4:55 p.m., police officer Jonah Hernandez responded to a business in Las Cruces, New Mexico for a trespassing call. As soon as he arrived on location, the individual in question fatally stabbed the officer with a large kitchen knife. A witness to the brutal, unprovoked attack drew his personal firearm and killed the suspect. He then used the fallen officer's radio to call for help. Jonah was rushed to hospital, but he did not survive. The suspect was identified as a homeless man with a long history of violent crime and mental health issues. Officer Jonah Hernandez, a native of El Paso, Texas, was a 2-year veteran of the Las Cruces Police Department and leaves behind a wife and 2 young sons, ages 10 and 2. Officer Hernandez is the first officer to be killed in the line of duty since the police department was established in 1928. He was 35 years old.
Central 97. How's it going, boss? You been staying here for a while? What's up? This is your place? So you're the one who called?
What's that?
You're the one who called?
I didn't call.
Huh?
I didn't call nobody.
Oh,
Alrighty, so I've been asked by a lot of people to provide or to give my opinion and my thoughts on the Johan Hernandez line of duty death that occurred on February the 11th, 2024. We just watched the video. Now I want to provide you with kind of my thoughts or what's going through my head as I watch this video, as I respond to this video, and I think about how this video is going to be used going forward to train police officers, but also to train the public. And I think that is probably one of the most important things that can be done with an incident as absolutely horrific and tragic as the one that we just watched. My 2 major trains of thoughts when it comes to this, they're actually very closely related, and it might actually just be one train of thought, but I want to break it up into kind of 2 parts. The first one is that you have a lot of officers out there that are responding to calls for service, and they have this prevailing thought, and I'm guilty of saying this in the past, and I'll probably say it again in the future. It's just something that we all do as police officers. We'll utter the phrase or something to the effect of, I know you were taught how to do it this way in the academy, but this is how we do it in the street. This is how we do it in the real world. That's one major thing, and it's one of the major things that popped into my head when I watched this video. And the other thing is, the reason that officers aren't necessarily doing their job the way they were trained to do it, the way they were taught to do it in the academy, or maybe some officers are being trained to do things a little bit differently now, is in response to reactions from the community, reactions from lawmakers, reactions from groups like Black Lives Matter and quote unquote police reformers who are kind of dictating to police officers how they respond to calls for service and how they do their job. And I see this a lot in the YouTube comment sections of my videos and stuff too. They'll say things like, police officers are cowards. The way they talk to that guy, they didn't have to treat him that way. You see a lot of incidents in the media where police officers are putting handcuffs on a 13-year-old. They'll say things like, oh, he was just a boy. He doesn't need to be treated that way. And then 2 days later, there will be a headline about a 12 or a 13-year-old with a gun committing an act of murder. There's a lot of things that is being driven by the public that is having an effect on the way officers do their job. And these people in the public need to be made aware of instances like this. And police officers need to be reminded why we were trained to do our job the way we were trained to do our job. I've seen a lot of stuff on the internet and people being critical of Officer Hernandez and the way he responded to this call. And I'm here to tell you that the way he responded to this call is almost identical to the way I would have responded to this call. But also you have to be aware that the manner of which he responded to this call put him in danger. I'm not going to say that it cost him his life, but absolutely the way he responded to this call is a way that he let other people's emotions and other people's feelings dictate the way he did his job, and that caused him to compromise his safety. I think one of the things that I want to do is just really briefly, before I get into the major details of this, I want to go through the timeline of events and how this call for service happened. So Officer Hernandez arrived on scene at 6:55 and 47 seconds. 18 seconds later, the suspect had observed Officer Hernandez arrive on scene, was sitting in a seated position. He stood up and was prepared to greet Officer Hernandez. 19 seconds later, Officer Hernandez was within 10 to 15 feet of the suspect. That is the point in time when the suspect pulled the knife out. 19 seconds after standing up, the suspect had his knife out, and he was about 10 to 12 feet away from Officer Hernandez, in my estimation. 3 seconds later, he was actively stabbing Officer Hernandez. Officers are trained to go into these situations and keep an appropriate reactionary gap. That's what we're trained to do as police officers. We're trained to keep an appropriate reactionary gap. We're trained to treat people as if they intend to kill us until we prove, or until we are satisfied that they are not. There's a variety of things that we're trained to do. Keep an appropriate distance, order people to show us their hands. This was a trespassing situation. This is a situation where this guy could have been arrested. Honestly, if I was to handle this call and handle it 100% by the book, the moment I arrived on scene and realized that there was actually a person there, I should have called for a second car. On my organization, this is a 2-officer run. Often I'll volunteer for runs that are 2-officer runs because when I get there, there's not actually anybody there. And when I do show up and I'm confronted by a person, usually I handle that call by myself. I should not be doing that, and I will be cognizant of that going forward, just as Officer Hernandez probably should have done. I don't know if I said it already, but I want to make sure that I make it clear that the way he handled this run is almost identical to the way I would have handled this call for service. There's hundreds of videos out there on the internet of me responding to calls for service, and my approach to calls for service is very similar to his. I even had one recently that was a trespassing call for service that I put on the internet. I'll go ahead and put that clip in right here.
Hey, do me a favor, spread the word, because this guy's been pulling a lot. He's been flagging us down this entire time, but he's going to start issuing a arrest protocol. You know what I mean?
I just grabbed my lunch.
I understand. The city's coming down on him for having people hanging out and leaving trash and stuff.
So I'm here to tell you that I have altered the way I respond to calls for service. I'm not responding to calls for service the way I was trained to do. I was trained to keep people at distance, keep them outside of my reactionary gap, so that if they do produce a deadly weapon, I have time to respond. I don't have to run and flee where you might trip and then be attacked by somebody. That's what happened in this case. Now, the reason I have altered the way I respond to calls for service is because the public at large and the political ruling class that is in charge of us, and the civilian review boards and the Department of the Inspector General, and all of these people are telling us that we need to ease our approach, that we need to be nicer to people. We need to make them feel more comfortable, that we can't show up with this mean look on our face and show that we're there to control the situation, because the people that we're interacting with are victims and we don't know what they're experiencing, that we need to be cognizant of their feelings and stuff like that. I have one of those people that is making those kind of comments is this person right here. And who is this person? She is actually a City of Columbus City Council person. Her name is Lordis BosaD Padilla. She is this troll-looking person dressed like a Ukrainian flag. in the center of the screen here. And I have a video clip of her that I want to show you here in just a moment. And this is a video of her being interviewed by a Columbus police officer. And this is a video that was shown in the officer's annual in-service. This is a video of her telling officers how they need to respond for service to calls for service, particularly a non-violent call for service. Because if it's a non-violent call for service, as an officer, we're supposed to be able to put our guard down, right? And understand that these people just went through a traumatic event and that we need to be compassionate about that. We need to arrive and show some empathy for them. That's what she's going to say in this clip right here. I'll play it now.
Okay. And to work on that, what's something that we could do interpersonally to help with that situation? What a couple things you could recommend?
I mean, I think, some of it is tone of voice, like when you're walking into a situation, especially when the situation is not a violent situation, when you're being called, maybe it's a domestic violence call or something else, understanding that you are there to help, and what are the ways that you can demonstrate help, especially.
Right, let's leave out for a moment the fact that she said responding to a non-violent call like domestic violence. I've already addressed that on the channel and the foolishness of that comment, that all she is doing when she's saying stuff like that is that she is qualifying herself as someone who is completely unqualified to tell the police how to do their job. But for the purposes of this video today, I'm going to bring this image back up. This was the last image that Officer Johan Hernandez saw on the day that he died. Johan Hernandez was responding to a non-violent call for service. He was called about a simple trespasser, just a local homeless person that is a drug addict and suffers from mental illness. That's what the call that Officer Hernandez responded to. And he responded to that call for service the way the citizenry is asking officers to respond to that call for service. He was very nice, very lighthearted, very kind, very gentle with this person.
How's it going, boss? You been staying here for a while? What's up?
The way that person responded was with extreme violence, and he killed Officer Hernandez. This is the part of the conversation where the public needs to listen to the police. I'm tired of sitting back and having the public tell me that I'm the problem, that the reason that they're violent is because I show up and I am a show of force simply with my presence, with my guns and my tools and everything that I have above me and everything that I represent. When I respond to a call for service, my safety is the most important thing. I am concerned about my safety. I am concerned about my life. No matter what type of call for service. If it's a drunk driver, if it's someone that's mad about the fast food workers not getting their fast food right, if it's a simple trespasser sitting on a vacant property, my safety comes first. If you as a citizen respond to me with the thought of that officer's safety comes first, everything will go perfectly fine for you. You will not be harmed. You have nothing to worry about. Once we get the safety established, we can then go into solving the problem. We can respond with empathy. We can listen to your feelings. We can help you. But we can't do any of that until we know the situation is safe, that we know that this is not going to be my final call for service, that my wife and my children are not going to have to watch this video.